Okay, so today we're talking about reading goals, but not so much on how many books you're reading in the year, so just stick with me. Hey y'all, so it's Fangs and Pages here. I'm also Celine. Today we're talking about reading goals, but mainly focusing on how to make reading a little bit more efficient for us during the year. Instead of worrying about how many books we're reading in the year, there's nothing wrong with having a book goal, an annual book goal. There's nothing wrong with that. I have an annual book goal. So it's like I'm not knocking anybody on having an annual book goal. Just a little bit more on like how to efficiently read. Just efficiently read. But I don't focus my entire reading goal as an annual book goal. That's not mainly what I'm focusing on. What I'm focusing on is how many days of the year, how many days of the month, how many days of the week am I reading a year? Am I reading consistently? Because I've noticed for me personally, when I focus or I set a high reading goal, it doesn't work for me. My brain is like that rebellious teenager that doesn't really go with like what's popular. And another reason as to why I'm mainly focusing on days of the year is mainly for brain health. Your brain is still activated just by reading. So it helps stimulate different parts of your brain. I can do that in another video. So if that's something that you would like, make sure to comment down below if that's want to watch or get some of that information. But mainly for me, my main goal is fiction. I love reading fiction. I love what it does for me. It's more interesting to me. So before we get into the in-depth of how to set your reading goals, make sure that if you like this video so far, make sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, share, do all that stuff. Make sure you hit the notification bell. That way you're getting the notifications of when I upload. Without further ado, let's continue. We don't want to focus on the big end of the year goal. We want to focus on the smaller ones in between. And with that, there's multiple ways on how to do that. I start with weekly goals, which also goes into daily goals, right? Making sure that I just get through the day and get my reading done is mainly how I focus on getting and reaching my weekly goal. So for January, I've already read 7 days straight, at least at the time that I'm recording this video. It might be different now. And even if you are setting a daily goal and you are setting a weekly goal and you haven't read for the 7 days, it's very important to know that it's okay. You still have next week, right? You're still getting 7 days ahead of what you read last week. You don't want to beat yourself up over if you're on your goal, if you're on track for your goals, or you're off track of your goals. Because I can already tell you right now, there's going to be some months where I don't read at all. Every year, around the summertime, it's too hot to read, especially where I live, or I'm doing something because the summer is a busy time. I don't really put too much pressure on myself. If I read at all during the summer, that's a win. That's a plus. And if you're struggling on how to read daily, here's a little tip that kind of gets me on my daily reading goals and how I've gotten, at least for the first week, 7 days straight. What I usually do is I take a book that I have, either a I usually take a physical copy book, so like paperback, hardback, whatever, and I'll place it by my bed. I had Hungerstone by my bed for like the first week. Another thing is if you have a Kindle, you can put this by your bed. That way when you lay down, whatever you have next to you, you're just going to pick up and grab. And I usually read about 30 minutes to an hour before I go to bed because it helps my brain to relax. I have ADHD, so when I put my focus on something that's relaxing, I'm able to fall asleep better and I'm able to fall asleep faster. Also, if you don't have a Kindle, you have your phone, right? You can download the Kindle app on your phone. There's ways that you can get your reading in right before you go to bed, which I think is like the best time, at least for me. Now, I read all day long, but my main focus is reading before I go to bed. I've noticed if I read those 30 minutes to an hour before I go to bed, I'm actually taking chunks off of that book, right? And I'm digesting it. I'm thinking about it. I'm doing all that stuff. This book that I'm reading right now on Kindle, I'm already a quarter of the way through with this book. And that is the most I've ever read in a week. I'm literally almost halfway there. So it's in sections. So I think there's 4 separate parts. I'm already a quarter of the way done with it. My next goal is 50 and I'll probably get that done by next week. So I'll already be by the end of this month. So it depends on how much time you're willing to put into reading every day. It can be a minute. As long as you're picking up that book and you're reading, you're logging what day you're reading. If having physical copies of your book and having a Kindle is not really in your tools for reading, that's perfectly fine. There's also, if you take advantage of your library, you have books at the library that you can get a physical copy for. And also there are these online apps that you can get on your phone that can also connect to your Kindle app on your phone. It doesn't have to be on a Kindle. And then you can just read from your Kindle app there and it'll log the days. And that's another way of how I also make sure that I'm getting on my reading. It'll log the days for me. But you have Libby, you have Cloud Library, you have Hoopla. You really just have to go to your local library, sign up for a library card, and then sign up to the apps and you'll have access there. There's a way that you can log your stuff manually. Now for me, I have a Dollar Tree planner, and that Dollar Tree planner I use, and I get a permanent marker or a pencil or whatever I have available and just put a little dot at the top of that day that I read. And that's another way that I physically log my days. Also, you can because I can't find my planner. I don't know where it's at. So I took a paper, and you can either I'll put here we go. So I have January for the month. If you want to log the days of the month, you have your weekly, and then you have your days, how many days you read so far. And I usually do tallies to keep track of it. Another thing about the apps is that they have audiobook options. They have comic book options. They have mangas. So there's more than just reading the full long chapter books and novels. You have other options on these apps, which I think is really cool. And if you are an audiobook listener, another way that you can take the advantage of reading before you go to bed is by listening to your audiobooks. Keep your headset by your bed. That way you're mainly focusing on, I am getting 30 minutes to an hour through this book. That way your brain is off of social media, your brain is off of your phone, and you're essentially cutting your screen time in half if that is your focus for this year. Just make sure you don't fall asleep with your headset on. My wife is a huge audiobook listener, and she falls asleep with her headset on every night. I have to make sure that she doesn't lose her headset. You're taking care of your headset before you go to bed. If you see yourself or you catch yourself falling asleep, just make sure to take your headset off before you go to bed. That way you're not losing it the next time that you find it. Another way that you can log your days through your phone is through your phone calendar. You can you could put a period, you could put a little emoji, you could put a book emoji on the days that you read. It's endless. So when you break your goals into smaller chunks and you utilize whatever you have around you strategically, you're able to chip away at those bigger goals, and you may even exceed those bigger goals. So with that said, I hope to see you all in the next video. Happy reading, and don't forget to sink your fangs into those pages. See you later!